Left of the box. I would see Rebel HQ contributors who were newer than me getting spots on the main shows as guest co-hosts. And I
Really?
asked, and I never got allowed. The only thing I did outside of that was my chat with Cenk on the conversation,
Mm.
which to me was a little nerve-wracking. I had been with them for a month when,
Oh, really? I
yeah,
saw that conversation, by the way, too.
I had just been with them for a month at that point, and already I'm like, okay, I'm going to challenge this. This was bullshit. Just the way that
Mm-hmm.
Cenk and Anna were mocking somebody trying to use inclusive language for
Mm-hmm.
people like me, people who can
Yeah.
conceive. And it really upset me. And so I got on the conversation with Cenk, but it's like really it's just 12 minutes dialogue. And I had never met him before. I was nervous. I'm not a debater. It's
Mm,
just
right.
not something I do. And my autistic self, too, the first time I do anything, I can't handle it. Like I have a hard time with it. And so this
Mm-hmm.
was like my first time talking to him, having a sort of debate type style thing. And it took me over a year to actually rewatch that video. And it's like I didn't
Mm.
do bad, but there
Yeah,
was
I thought you did
so
fine.
much I have wanted to say. And so even at the end of it, I felt like he still dismissed it. Like, well, there's not really that many of you, are there? And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, how many does it have to be before you care? Before it's
Yeah.
important. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, but I used to think really good things about them, but at some point you got to let go and be like, okay, they're not the same people that they were, at least not
Mm-hmm.
how I saw them. Like they might have been always these people, but now they're presenting in a different way that is actually harmful to the trans community, to people who are non-binary like me, to the queer community in general. Because I told Jank at that time, like I indicated to it, I thought I said it very directly, but I guess I didn't, where it's like you are losing your LGBTQ plus audience,
Mm-hmm.
because I had so many friends that are like, I can't handle watching them anymore who are queer.
Mm-hmm.
And I hinted at it, but I don't think I directly said it to him. Um, but it's like, you know what? At this point now, I'm just going to take credit that I scared him off. Because
Mm-hmm.
ever since
Yeah.
then, he has not talked to a non binary or trans person about our issues since. Like
Yeah,
yeah, trans
it's not
people,
good.
yeah, trans people to Jank is like what Sam Cedar is to the right.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this, oh, I'll debate anyone. Oh, but here are all these, non-binary and trans people being like, we'll come on the show and debate you.
Mm-hmm.
Crickets.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me because he's not necessarily one to shy away from debate. He's
Hmm.
always brought on people who he's disagreed with. And he brings on Ben Glebe, for example, and they have really heated debates about Israel Palestine. So it was so weird that like when Benny Carollo offered him to have like this on-air conversation, that he declined, because
Hmm.
like I don't think anybody, even he, got the sense that like Benny or you, when you offered to talk to him, was doing it for clout. Like it was genuinely from a place of good faith and just, hey, let me help you
Hmm.
be a better ally. Because like I think that if you're not queer, uh, you're gonna mess up. Even queer people mess up with other people in the community. It's
Hmm.
just a part of human life. But like if you mess up so much to where you start to lose portions of your audience who have always been there, then I think that it's incumbent on you as a host with a massive platform to course correct.
Hmm.
And sometimes like the thing about Jenk is that he's always been really stubborn. That has not changed at all. But this isn't something that I think you can just brush aside. Have some conversations. If you're stubborn, at least hear them out. And the problem is that he shuts down and he refuses to hear them out and he goes on the attack. And
Hmm.
that's really annoying. And one thing that bothers me about the recent, this new era of TYT is that I feel like they extend a grace to right wingers that they don't offer to, their own colleagues and trans people. Like Anna Kasparian put out a tweet the other day that I just kind of like rolled my eyes at, where she was like, I think we should just not assume the worst about people and assume they're coming from a place of good faith. And it's like, well, okay, you say that about like right wingers, but what about like your colleagues? Like, as you said
Hmm.
earlier, when I had reached out to her in good faith, about the whole birthing person thing, not to rehash that, she she shut down. Cenk attacked Emma, and so it's like, were you assuming that we were coming from a place of bad faith? So I mean, if you're going to give that grace to right wingers, I think that's fine. But maybe take your own advice and extend it to your own friends and trans people who look up to you or did
Mhm.
look up to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just I've done a couple videos on this topic in particular because it's been so frustrating and just the way Cenk is trying to other leftists and put us all in a monolith, anyone who's more progressive than him. And it's so frustrating to see it go down this route. And it's like he's just refusing to listen at this point. He knows. He's just refusing to listen. And like the fact that he does a lot of the face punching and then gets upset when somebody punches him in the face type thing. Like when it comes to
Yeah.
insults. Like and I featured that on some of my videos where here's just some random person who challenged him on Twitter with a small following and Cenk just unleashed on them calling them names and stuff like that out of nowhere.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden Lance does the most milk toast kind of like, oh, this was bad. And Cenk be like, he was calling us fascists. It's like, what?
Yeah, it just it's so irrational and even uncharacteristic. I mean, Cenk has always had some weird takes and bad takes that I disagree with, but I feel like lately, it's getting worse. And I know, like last year when the whole birthing person kerfuffle had happened, he was mad because a lot of us on the left were publicly saying, you're kind of abandoning your principles. And he made a comment, something to the effect of, I'm paraphrasing, okay, well, if you saying that we sold out, then when we don't sell out and we're still progressive, will you apologize? And it's like, a year later, you're kind of going down a bad path still. I mean, that the conversation with Francesca Fiorentini about the trans athletes was so frustrating because
Yeah.
immediately when she brought it up and presented a humane, reasonable argument, you could just tell he shut down. He wouldn't
Hmm.
hear it. And again, like Cenk, to his credit, he's not afraid to debate. He goes on Piers
Hmm.
Morgan and deals with the most unhinged, Zionist folks. So it's weird that like he has this blind spot and doesn't seem to want to correct it.
Hmm.
And I think that part of it is that he feels a little bit burned because this is the one issue where he got probably the most pushback of his career from people who he's aligned with. But it genuinely never came from a negative place. Like, I speak for myself and at least people, on the leftist mafia, because we were kind of at the center of this, but like all of us were coming from a perfectly good faith position. And it was all about like constructive criticism.
Hmm.
I had used multiple examples about how Cenk had reached out to me because I had said something that was a little bit incorrect about Wolfpack. And I brought on the Wolfpack coordinator on my show to, correct the record and stuff. So, it's just about, hey, man, we hold people accountable and sometimes we mess up, sometimes we correct. Maybe we should listen and hear each other out. But it's just like whatever it was, he just like shut it down and didn't want to listen. And it's still frustrating till this day. And I genuinely like I hate the direction that they're headed in with the tough on crime. And the more you hear um Anna talk about how, hey, the other side's not so bad, it's actually freeing to not think that they're evil people. And maybe we should hear them out. And the more she it seems to double down on these attacks on the left. Like she takes little pot shots in her tough on
Hmm.
crime stories. And it's like, it feels like they're shifting because they're they're giving more leeway to people who they've been, opposed to instead of the people who they've been closest to. And that's what's always been so weird to me.
Hmm.
Like for me, if David Dole, for example, criticizes me, which we've had disagreements in the past about certain things, I take his opinion more serious than like a conservative who criticizes me because at least I know for sure David Dole is coming from a really good place. We've been friends for years. I've known him for years. He's known me. So, it wouldn't make sense for me to think, oh, well, we should actually listen to the opinion of the right winger, who I don't know necessarily, who oftentimes makes bad faith arguments more than my own colleague. And that's what's so baffling to me
Hmm.
is that I don't understand why they've taken this position and they've gone so defensive. But I appreciate people like Francesca and John Idarola like pushing back. And Jordan Uhl too. I give Jen credit for still platforming these people, but I just wish that he wouldn't talk past trans people, and that he like talk to a trans person.
Hmm.
That doesn't mean he's gonna agree. Like I don't expect him to agree, but like how ignorant he is and his refusal to hear their perspective is so frustrating to me.
Mhm.